show you first. I'm going to show you last night's end result from the C9.25. This is what I have here, about 4,000 power. If I zoom in, actually this is zoomed in a bit. It's about 5,000 power effective. Little the amount of detail from the C9.25. I was hoping I could get more from the C14 today, from instead of yesterday, which would be Tuesday morning. It would be Wednesday morning, which would be the 23rd. So let's see what we got here. I'm going to go in and show you what I was looking at. Actually, I'm not going to show you the these are the composite images, by the way. These are the composite RGB images that I got yesterday. You can see there's some detail here in the blue channel, the green channel, and the red channel, which is over sharpened a bit, and that's the results. So that's what happened. Now I spent 48 minutes capturing images, but the last run was about 10 minutes long maybe. This is my goal. This is 3 o'clock. I actually ended around 4, I think. Maybe this is when I ended. I think this is actually before I ended. This was, I think, the beginning image. There's much rotation here. This is it. It's the same screenshot. So earlier and then later. Not a heck of a lot of. Well, there's some rotation happening. So, anyways, this is the image that I got from the processing off the computer at home. And basically this image is from sharpening, over sharpening, mixing, and then trying to take a blurred image and a sharpened image, do an HDR process on them, and bring them back into some less sharpened, less gaudy image. So that was the goal. Anyways, it wasn't too happy with it. There's a lot of atmospherics here, so I wanted to sharpen it up a bit, and I ended up using first did a quick run through with Enlight with curves. This is no curve. This is the red curve, which makes an adjustment. But then I started to show the adjustments from the other ones. You can see the histogram here. Here's the histogram. It's pretty smooth. I'm moving things a little bit around, not too much, with the red. Then I do the green. Then I do the blue to try to change this image a bit. In the end, I ended up doing that, and decided to go back in. I wanted to do an RGB. I wanted to do like a better screenshot to show what I was doing with each channel. And so here's where we start again. Here's the starting point again, where we start with the red, with the green. You can see the histograms on the bottom here. Here's the right side, drop off to black, and here's the drop off on the top end of the highlighted end in the histogram. Here is the same thing with the green. See the drop off to the black, pretty well matched. The drop off to the green, there's a spike of green here, which are like green highlights in the image. And then the blue, same thing, basically the same thing. So the channels are pretty well mixed in there, pretty well. They're pretty well evenly mixed. The blue shows atmospherics. So then what I did was I looked at the overall. This is the overall altogether, what it looks like with all the RGB. We don't see the RGB components, we just see a white, which is all. Now I can play with all first, so I go over and and I do the curves in all, and I start to move these around. Just to this, I'm not changing the color, the pre-mixed colors that I'd already mixed and adjusted, and I'm doing this to get like a little bit different of a look. I'm actually stretching this so you can see the highlights are getting brighter. They're going more to the right side, and leaving some dark on this end, doing kind of an S curve. So I get some more detail here, but I want to do it with RGB. I'm going to leave this the way it is with this mixed curve here, and I'm going to go into the RGB. So here's the R. Now when I add the R, it's going to really look, you're going to see a lot of highlights and overly saturated reds. But it doesn't matter because I'm going to change that other curve this curve is going to go back to flat, so the R enhancement won't be doubly enhanced with this curve and the R curve. So the R curve is going to become enhanced. So I'm going to see more detail than I want to see, more gaudiness, which is what I've been trying to get rid of, which I had too much of anyways. And there's a lot of grit and green, so getting too much of that. Then I do the blue, the green, add it in, looking at the overall effect of both. And then I do the blue atmospherics, add those in. But I don't add a lot of blue in. If this part here was raised, we'd see a lot more blue on the edge. Then I decide to go back and I get rid of the white. So now the only changes are here, here, and here. So now I have the red, green, and blue redone. And this is the result. So here's my result. Now, I'm pretty happy with this. A lot of the atmospherics are gone. There's more subtle detail in here, seeing a little bit more detail. We're seeing detail from different colors, so a little bit of a contrast to the eye. We're enhancing the colors a bit. We're seeing some of the detail. This detail has been muted, obviously, and I'm not sharpening it much, really. I'm not really sharpening it at all. I'm just trying to get some of the color enhancements that were in the original detail that was somewhat muted from the PC processes. So I'm trying to get some more image there. Then we need to. I decided I didn't like the amount of blue that was disappearing. I'd gotten rid of a lot of the atmospherics. I wanted to add a little bit more of the blue back in, because when you look at like a Hubble photo or whatever, there is blue, but we don't see it because the blue light scatter and it's just being mixed in as white. We don't really see the blue component with our eyes. We don't see like a sharp blue saturated component that can be added in that the Hubble would see. We have blue scatter in our atmosphere that's causing this blue to be scattered more and distorted, and it's hard to get a good blue channel anyways. You have to take more of it supposedly, and you have to have really good seeing, and the exposures have to be longer, so it's gonna mess up on your seeing if you're taking short exposures. Add gain and you add grain. But blue's for atmospherics mostly anyways, not a lot of detail. So here's what I do is I went into the, instead of going to curves, I chose the presets, and I chose the London, which adds a kind of a blue tint. It adds more blue tint in. I raised it up to 37. You can see here, this is 37 here. You just slide your finger to the right or left to adjust it. And I got more blue, more atmospherics. And there's some detail that's been added to, there's a little bit more of a tint happening. And there's a little bit of a blue haze tinge on the scattering on the horizon. Although it's pretty there's quite a bit of greenness, but when you come out, it's not that bad. So that's my result. So this is the result, and this is what I ended up with. Now, the thing is, what I want to do is show the three, but I want to show them all together, and I want to reorient them. So I have to flip it upside down. I use Filter Storm to do that. I'm not going to show you how I did that, any screenshots of that, but I just did a flip to get the orientation closer to reality of what you'd be seeing in the eyepiece, or the true north orientation that you want, I should say. And then I flipped the other two, which this is the intermediate one without the blue enhancement, and this is the original one. So now I have the three. I can show them in a composite, and this is actually the last image with the blue, London blue added in filter. That's my image. But as you can see, the edge, we have a drop off here on the edge. The drop off is from losing some detail. This is happening from Gaussian blur, is putting more of a atmospherics on the edge and giving it more of a spherical look, the way Gaussian blur works. Here it is without as much atmospheric blue, a little bit less true, but a little bit more like a chart. And here's what this is a little bit more true the eyepiece view, a little bit less of loss of the edge, but I had to still cut off quite a bit, almost like a black level cut off, to get some contrast and to get rid of some of the edge anomalies and stuff, and not have a lot of grit around the surface of the planet. So I'm cutting off a little bit of the surface that way. And there's pick your color. This is the last one I did, the blue. This is the middle one, and the original one that came from the PC processing, which is somewhat it's obviously more softened because the details in the color are not being brought out, you know, and enhanced. I'm using color gradient, overly color gradient stuff. So here's our composite, the original one from the PC, which is number 3, with the graphic from the iPhone, which it doesn't look like it's right. Maybe I should go for a 4 o'clock graphic here instead of a 3 o'clock, but I don't show that. And then here's the final one. As you can see, the tilt here, I don't know if I have the camera quite aligned, but what happens is the camera is aligned. You can align the camera accordingly. You can either align it to where this is going to be shown at an angle which is closer to straight up and down, which is what it would be. The South Pole is straight up and down in orientation of the sun, or tilted, which is how we would see it from an orientation at an angle in the sky, depending on where it is. If it's not directly south, it won't be looking straight up and down because it's not aligned with the ecliptic. It's going to tilt as it goes through the sky, and of course the tilting is going to be picked up at the telescope depending on how you have the camera mounted on it. And since you're with an EQ mount, if you're doing a lot of exposures, you don't want to have rotation happening and you want the frame to rotate correctly, then we're going to have this orientation which shows a little bit of a tilt. It shows some of the tilt from early on in the session, but the camera probably needs to be tilted more to get this orientation, or tilted less to get a regular chart orientation. There's 2 ways of looking at this. This is a true orientation as it would look like through, say, a Dobsonian that was corrected, or a binocular telescope that was corrected and showing you what it would look like. This is what it would look like through binoculars. If you had a high enough power binocular, who's going to have a 5,000 power binocular, or, you know, in this case with the screen resolution, actually about half the screen would be about 8,000 of this iPad mini. About half the screen would be about 8,000 power. So there you have it. So this is basically 8,000 power, right around 8,000 power. This is what an 8,000 power image would be looking like of Mars. And what else do I have to say? Not much. I could show you, if I showed you the original source images, I could show you that later. You'd be amazed how much lack of detail there is, and that's why this image is not as good. It would have been a lot better had the day earlier, if I'd have used the C14 instead of this telescope. There would have been a lot more detail. There's actually a lot more detail, although there's a lot of grain in this. You can see the way I process this. I was going for max detail. There's a lot more detail in this image. And you can see here's a setting I used in the other image. I used structure, blacks, and highlights, and shadows to get a little bit more of a detail in this image. And it's pretty heavily pixelated from trying to push the detail out of it. Yeah, so that was the night before, and this was the night before iPhone photo at about 4,000 power, believe it or not. And this is me trying to get some detail out of that. I used this presets, and I used went in there and I went to simple adjustments. I went for structure, brightness, contrast, and saturation to get this because it was kind of overexposed a bit. Trying to get some detail out of the different color channels. Not that good. The iPhone can't do very good, but that's a handheld iPhone shot, single shot. Not bad considering it's an iPhone. Yeah, there's the iPhone shot of it. Alright. With that, I'm going to be done.